Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to be doing some more partitioning. Remember, my name is Miss Munoz and I'm going to be doing math with you. Quick reminder, I'm going to be using these two markers. When I write in red, you're just going to watch. When I write in green, you're going to do everything that I do, even if you have to pause the video to catch up. Okay, today we are doing lesson 2 of unit 9 and we're on page 135 of your student journal. And yesterday we introduced the word halves and fourths. Today we're just going to focus on halves. So our title is halves. And halves means 2 parts. So halves means 2. When I think of halves, I think of 2. Our goal or our objective today is I will partition circles and rectangles into halves and shade 1 half. Okay, so our vocabulary is partition, and it says to divide objects into shares. So yesterday I said when I think of divide, I also think of cut. And then one word that they forgot today that's really, really important is equally. That was the most important word, is when you partition something, you have to do it equally. You have to make sure that the shares are fair. Okay, our other word today is half or halves. Half is the singular word and halves means plural or two. So when I do something with halves, it means there's going to be 2 equal shares. So I want you to underline the 2 equal shares. And then our other vocabulary word today says shade. When they tell you to shade something, they want you to color it. Usually shade means though you're going to color it lightly. So if I shade something, it's not going to be really dark. It's going to be really light. Okay? So what I have today is I have my markers. You should have your pencil, but you might also want to have a crayon. Now, since we're going to be coloring lightly, you probably don't want a dark purple or a dark blue. You might want a light colored crayon. So maybe a pink or a light green or an orange or a light blue. But if you have a crayon, it might work really good for today. Okay, so boys and girls, I'm going to put down my green marker and pick up my red, which means you can put down your pencil and just get ready to watch. Okay, so here's my first example. It says, partition each circle to show halves. Okay, when I see the word partition, I know to cut. When I see the word halves, I know they want it in 2 parts. And then they tell me they want me to shade 1 of the halves. So they want me to shade 1 of the 2 parts. Okay, and remember, when I see partition, I also think cut, but I think fair or equal. So I could partition that in half, and then when I shade in 1 of the halves, I'm going to color in lightly 1 of them. So I could have also partitioned it fairly horizontally and shaded in 1 of the halves. And notice when I shade, I'm being kind of quick. I could have also done it diagonally, as long as I made sure they were as fair as possible. And I could have even done it diagonally this way. So there's lots of ways that I could, There's lots of ways that I could have divided it or partitioned or cut it fairly. But the goal is just to make sure your shares are fair. Okay, let's see another one. This one, they give me a rectangle, and again, they want me to partition or cut fairly or equally each rectangle into halves. And then they want me to shade 1 of the halves or shade 1 of the 2. So if I was doing this, I could partition it that way. I could, which is vertically, I could partition it horizontally. I could partition it diagonally, and I even could partition it diagonally that way. So there's many ways I could cut it in half or partition it fairly. And then they want me to shade one of the halves. So I'm going to shade, which is color lightly, one of the halves. Okay, let's try one more. This time it says partition each square to show halves. So partition is cut or divide fairly or equally, and halves is 2, and then shade in one of the halves or one of the 2. So again, I could do it this way. I could do it horizontally. I could have done it diagonally or diagonally this way. So there's many right ways to do this. You just have to make sure that you did it into 2 parts, because halves means there has to be 2 shares, and you have to make sure your shares are fair or equal. Okay, I'm trying to get caught up in my shading. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's try some together. So in your book, you're going to turn to page 136, and we are going to work on these together. Okay, so partition each shape to show halves and shade in one of the halves. Okay, so partition, remember, means cut. And I might do an equal sign. You guys know what the equal sign means. Cut equal, just to remind me. And halves means 2. And then shade in one of the halves means shade in one of the 2 shares. Okay, so I think for this one we might just go vertically. So I cut or partitioned it equally into 2, and now let's shade in one of the 2. So if you have your crayon, you could shade it with that. If you don't have a crayon, you could just shade it lightly with a pencil. Okay. Now let's try our rectangle. Maybe on this one, maybe let's divide it horizontally. So remember, there's many right ways to do this. We just want to make sure that there's 2 equal shares, and then we can shade in one of the 2 equal shares. Okay, and maybe for our next shape, which is a square, maybe let's try this one diagonally. Let's cut it right in half. Sometimes I like to cut my sandwiches like that. Especially if I make a yummy grilled cheese sandwich, I like to cut it diagonally. I don't know, it just seems more fun to me to have it diagonal. I wish you were in person and you could tell me if you like your sandwiches that way too. So let's shade in one of the 2. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you feel good about that, because right now I want you to practice some on your own, okay? So you're going to practice this page, and then you're going to turn the page and even practice another page of it, okay? On the back, these are challenge problems. You could try these if you'd like. Okay, boys and girls, have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.